let's get to cutting this off and hope I don't blow up. Alright, welcome to the channel, or if you've been here before, welcome back to the channel. So, working on the 81 Camaro for Super Paired. If you saw the last video, we were having an issue with fueling, so we're going to do something about that. So I pulled out the tank, pulled the foam out of the tank. We're going to go ahead and add a Holley HydraMat to this. If you're not familiar with the Holley HydraMat, it's a fuel reservoir in the shape of basically kind of a sheet, like a puppy pee pad is what it looks like to me. But you place it in the bottom of the tank and it uses surface tension to draw fuel from anywhere. So previously we were trying to get fuel from these rear sumps, but things were sloshing around even with the foam in there. So that's why we ran out of gas, or starved for gas mid-corner. So the idea is we're going to put the HydraMat in the bottom. We're going to run the return a little bit differently than it was set up before. We're going to put our foam back in the tank and we should have no more problems getting fuel up to the motor. So let's take a look at some of the stuff we got to do to make that happen. So like I mentioned, the car used to draw fuel from the sump in the bottom of this fuel cell. It's a 5-gallon fuel cell. I believe it's by RCI. But it's a drag racing setup. The idea here is that it's nice and low. When you accelerate, the car does a wheelie, all the fuel goes back, and it gets picked up out of one of these or both of those Dash 8 fittings. Because we do a little bit more side-to-side stuff, that's not really going to work for us anymore. So in this install, I'll be capping these off. We won't even be using these anymore. The HydraMat's going to go down inside, and we'll see that in a bit. But I do want to kind of utilize some of this stuff now. This is a rollover vent. There's a check valve in here, so we're going to leave that alone. That's going to get hooked up like it normally got hooked up. But this is the fuel return. And the problem with this fuel return is it's a Dash 8 fitting. There's nothing on the inside of the tank that directs it anywhere, just dumps fuel on the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this off. It's welded very nicely, but that's gonna go away. I'm gonna cut this off, and then I have a bolt-in Dash 8 bulkhead that I'll be using to run a line for a return. But you'll see all that in a bit. Let's get to cutting this off and hope I don't blow up. Came out easy. Okay, so there we are. That got the other half of this, so there's a little piece that normally goes through. That got that out of there, so now our bulkhead will work. I managed to save the sticker, mostly. Dug into that a little bit, but it's a race car. What do you want? So that's taken care of. The next thing that we're gonna have to do is place a bung in the side, and I'll show you why I'm doing it in the side in just a little bit. But I only have a small area to work in here, so I will go ahead and mark that, drill that, and then I'll kind of give you guys an overview of why the fuel feed is now going to be coming out the side of this and why I did that bit there. All right, so let me talk about why I'm putting the feed for the fuel pump in the side. So this monstrosity here is the old setup. So it would leave the tank, go through my first filter, go into the pump, to this dumb loop, into the next filter, and then it would head out to the motor. The HydraMat acts as a filter, so I can eliminate this filter here. Now pay attention to that filter, because I'm going to show you where it was. That filter used to sit on this bracket right here. What we're gonna do this time is we're gonna put the fuel pump there, so the fuel pump can just do a quick little whoop, and it's good to go. So I would never accuse myself of being smart, but I do feel like I have taken steps to be less dumb. So here we are with the current setup. I've got the fuel pump where the old filter was, and my intent was to put the bung right there in the middle. The problem is that's way too much bend in the line. So I think what's gonna happen is we're going to probably put the bung here, so we've got a nice gentle curve right up to it, and we should be good to go. Now, I would have loved to have reused these, but because I have to have a barb fitting on the inside, there's no room with the way the bottom of the cell slants up. So those will be capped off. This will run to right about there, and we should be in business. All right, so nothing's tightened up yet, but you can already see kind of how nicely that's gonna work out. It's got a nice little sweep to it. The radius is good. And because this is an AN fitting, if I want to go to a braided line later, I can. This length of hose plus a little bit of rubber I have to get over to the filter are under the amount that you're allowed to have. You're allowed to have so much, I don't remember, but it's short because it's the same that it was before. But this is nice. So the HydraMat will hook up to the other side of this. Fuel will get pulled into the fuel pump and go. So we're going to work on getting the HydraMat installed next, and then we can kind of finish out the rest of our fuel system behind the fuel cell there. So we're making a little bit of progress. This is the post filter, and this is the bracket that actually I think this used to originally be on, and then it became that monstrosity I showed you earlier. But this will sit right in there like that. It'll bolt up with the straps. Hose connects to the fuel pump, and then heads on off to the engine. So that's squared away there. Now we can check out the fuel cell. So we're back at the fuel cell. Here's where I removed that return bung. If you're wondering, I kind of knew I wouldn't blow myself up. Aluminum doesn't typically spark. Plus, I emptied the gas out of this many, many days ago. It's been airing out, venting out. I really wasn't too worried about that. So that's our return bung. We're waiting on that to show up. That shows up tomorrow. Here's our fuel outlet to the pump. The other side of this has another... all right, there it is. So there's the other side as it comes through. It has a barb fitting. That barb fitting will run to the HydraMat, which is going to go down in here. That's why we've protected it with that duct tape. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the HydraMat in here and mark where the corners are so we can epoxy the mounting studs in. Okay, so here is the HydraMat. You can see this is the 11" by 11". It fits great with the 12" by 12" fuel cell. So there are little holes in the corners here. You would take it out of the plastic bag when you're ready. I just don't want to get them dirty. But there are little holes at each corner, and there are mounting studs that epoxy in basically just with super glue in there. Now, Holley says, at least according to some documentation I found, I can continue to use the foam blocks that were in this, and I'm going to do that. And a lot of people use just the foam blocks to hold it in place. I'm going to be belts and suspenders, mainly because I ordered the parts twice, so they would get here on time. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the corners where that all will mount in place. And that'll be it for the night, probably until more parts arrive. So check back in soon. Okay, we are in the home stretch. So I've got the new return bung in there. That has a barb fitting on the other side. I've got the feed on this side. I'll see if you can see them in there. Yeah, you can kind of see them. Those are the studs that are supposed to hold the HydraMat. Kind of had a guess where they're going. Like, I tried to mark it, but it was a pain. So we'll see. Worst case, the foam's going to hold them in place. I'll snap those guys off, but we're going to go ahead and get the HydraMat. We'll put a fitting on this, and we'll get it fed into the tank, and we'll start to run our lines, our foam, and then we can finish up with the install. Well, that was a fun adventure. So, number one, hook up your hose to the fitting before you put it in there, because that sucks. But, other news, there's the old saying, it's better to be lucky than good. 3 of the hold downs were in the right spot. 1 wasn't, but actually you can see it there. It kind of overlaps. But the hoses are going to hold this in place. So here's the return, comes from here, runs down, shoots right at the HydraMat, and then that's the feed going off that way. So now we'll put the foam in, put this back the rest of the way, and get it in the car. And just because I'm sure somebody's going to be curious about the foam, you can See in there, that's the feed side. There's a return. The foam is in. Good to go. Okay, so everything's generally buttoned up back here. I need to put an extra clamp on the fuel pump. The fuel pump now lives right here, so you can see the feed comes out of the side of the tank, runs into the pump, that runs over to the filter back there, and heads up to the front of the car. Let's turn it on and see if we have any leaks, or let's turn on the fuel pump and see if we have any leaks. So fuel pump's on, system's pressurized, no leaks. Let's start the car. Okay, so obviously we need to drive it and race it, but I'd say that works. It looks like we're gonna go to the dyno Saturday, and then Sunday we have a race at Ripken, and we'll see if it's fixed. So fingers crossed. Thanks for sticking this one out. Next video will be a race video. I'll shut off that awful scroll, sorry about that. The next one will be dyno and a race video, so some good action coming up in the next one. Thanks for checking this out, and we'll see you next time.